welcome to the show. It's a crazy Wednesday night. Everybody's feeling like Corona's kind of left us. Hasn't left us. It's still around. We've got some very special guests. There's Jackie Rewalt already joined. I can see you, brother. You stay on there. You'll join shortly. I'll click the button. All good. So our special guest tonight, obviously Jack Rewalt, superstar of the AFL, legend and Tasmanian, which we're going to speak about. He's in the Tasmanian Hall of Fame as far as football players go, along with Ian Stewart, great St Kilda player. Darryl Baldock, great St Kilda player and coach. Nick Rewalt, his cousin, obviously. Brent, our US correspondent, has joined, my brother. So we've got Jack Rewalt coming up. We've got our US correspondent coming up. We've also got Dean Maddock coming up, who's going to be talking about the prison system in Australia and about how to reform it. There's also about like what it's like to be a frontline prison officer coming in, doing the hard stuff. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for those who've supported us and given us like coin, which is just it's so sweet. We're still low on the coin, make no mistake. Here we go. We're at paypal.me/IsoLate Muldoon. IsoLate Muldoon. It sounds like a tragic kind of thing. But anyway, the show's going fantastically well. And thank you to our sponsors so much. I very much appreciate it. Obviously, a lot's been going on in the US. We're about to be joined by our US correspondent. I've just got to see if Brent's there. There he is. Okay, we're just about to be joined. That really uncomfortable part of the bit where I have to press a button to make the show work. But Brent, are you there? Hello.
Hey.
Hey, we've got some Freebird playing for you in the background.
Excellent. I hope it's the long version. How you doing, Rice?
Reese, good. How's it going over there?
I'm all right. How's Austria going?
Australia, good. Like, we're just starting to kind of ease off with the ISO thing.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if your viewers know this, but you got me up at the ass crack of dawn to be on the show. You know that, right?
I would never ask anyone to get up at the crack of dawn. Like it's.
But you did every week. Sometimes 5 times a week, you have me get up and come on your little show, and and talk to you.
I know, my brother, and that's why I'm asking. Well, I've already mentioned, like, to our sponsors, if they could throw some money our way. I'll read it out again too, by the way. It's paypal.me/IsoLate Muldoon, because we've got to support, obviously, our US correspondent as much as anyone.
And donate American. I don't want none of that Austrian stuff that you got over there.
Dollars.
Don't go getting emotional on me again.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's just this studio. I just get a little bit, the dust. It's the dust.
Yeah, I could see it floating around in there, but did you see what was going on in the United States this week?
Are we talking about the drug taking? Or are we talking about...
We don't take drugs over here. You mean the hydroxychloroquine?
Possibly.
Well, yeah, Mr. Trump likes to take hydroxychloroquine. Have you ever taken drugs without actually needing to take them before?
In my younger days, when I was, I was slightly more foolish.
There you go.
Back.
Mr. Trump's the same way. Sometimes you just pop some morphine just in case. You might need it. I mean, we're throwing stuff against the wall, mostly his nasal cavities, but we're throwing it against the wall to see what's going to stick. Adderall and hydroxychloroquine and stuff. But the main reason I'm here to be on your little show is I'm I've been appointed an ambassador for Space Force.
No way. Is that? Could you for our audience, if you could explain what Space Force is, firstly?
Well, Space Force is kind of like the Air Force, but you know how planes will fly at a certain level. If the plane just kind of kept going, that's Space Force. And I would actually join myself, but they don't make a spacesuit bigger than a 2X. So I've been appointed to come on little shows like yours, like on Instagram or whatever this is, and I'll come talk to people about it because I don't know. They unveiled the Space Force flag this week, which looks kind of like a knockoff of Star Trek. I'm looking into it. I'm thinking Star Trek maybe took our design about 50 years ago before we actually debuted the flag. But I think Space Force is a fantastic ideal. You know, we can't figure shit out in our own country, so might as well go mess some shit up in outer space, if you know what I'm saying. But it's a sacrifice over 30 million people in our country are willing to make. You know, they're on unemployment, which I was way ahead of all these people being on unemployment. And it's a sacrifice that all these doctors and nurses that don't have the proper equipment to fight the coronavirus, you know, the Corona 19, they're willing to make that sacrifice so we could go fight in space because we don't know what's out there until we go mess with it and get all that dust kicked up like in your studio, and then we come down with something and get sick, and then we got to take the hydroxychloroquine, so it comes full circle right there. But Mr. Trump also announced that we got a new missile. Did you see that?
I didn't see the new missile. I didn't. And how do you pronounce? Sorry, how do you pronounce? Do you pronounce missile like motorcycle? Is it a?
Yeah. Now you got the dust all kicked up over here.
Sorry.
It's kind of like motorcycle, but we have I know some of you will say missile, and like I got my mobile phone. So you know, there's different pronunciations across the country, but it's like motorcycle. You're getting the dust all kicked up over here too. It's the damnest thing, but
space dust.
For years we just had plain old boring super missiles, but Mr. Trump just introduced a super duper missile. That was that word duper that we were missing for years. And now all these aliens don't want to mess with us with that word duper. And it's you better watch out, Kim Jong-un and Elton John, because there's a new rocket man in town. And his name's Donald J. Trump. You know, all these people thought it was just a joke when he announced Space Force. They thought it was all ha-ha funny, time to make jokes, but they're not going to think it's funny once Elon Musk brings back a Predator. And I'm not talking about the Catholic Church kind neither. You know, they're going to think it's funny. Are you getting emotional again? They're going to think it's funny. You know, once Elon Musk brings home an Ewok and then he parks at your front stoop and he walks up the steps and the Ewok ding dong on your door and now your daughter's dating an Ewok, you're going to think that's funny. Now you got to put up with an Ewok every Christmas, you know, coming to your house. That shit ain't funny. And as far as I'm concerned, all these stitches out here is getting ready to get stitches, you know, because we're going to put a boot in an Ewok ass. You know, God forbid Mork comes down from outer space and starts doing improv all over the goddamn planet. We don't want that. You instead of yes and, you better say no. Those are the rules of improv. I don't know if you know that shit, but I don't know what's funny about all. We're talking about international security to prevent aliens, both domestic and space, from coming to our country.
Indeed, but how do you think? Like, do you think that that the president's drug taking, is it a just say no thing, or is it just say yo? Is it, where do you sit on the drug taking?
I think before the doctor even said, when the doctor says, "Hey, what do you think about?" and then Mr. Trump's like, "Yes," it's always yes. It's a very improv approach to taking drugs, you know. But what I'm saying is, all these aliens out here better watch out. Don't be messing with the United States, because they better watch out, because them rings around Saturn, they better hope them rings is a Nuva ring, because these aliens is about to get fucked.
I hope they may well be.
Fucked sexually. I don't know if you know if I was conveying that, but that's what we're saying. Okay? So do you have any more questions for Space Force before I sign off?
No,
I got making the circuit this morning.
I know you are. And how is Space Force sitting with NASA? Is there any kind of tension between the two?
Well, I don't. It's kind of like, you know, when your regular dad moves out and your stepdad moves in. I mean, there's a big dog in town. You can't do anything with it, you know. You just got to accept it and lay back and just embrace the full force.
Let's all embrace the force. Now, Brent, just before we go, I just wanted to check on how the family's going. How's your wife? How are the kids? How are the puppies? Just the basics.
They're all doing really well. Usually when I tune into the show, I have Brenda kind of keep the dogs quiet, and I think they've been pretty good so far. I don't know if you can hear it from the quiet. Hold on, let's give it a second and see if they can. No, hold on. Speak of the devil. Brenda, keep the dogs down. I'm on this little show. I'm speaking about Space Force. Okay, I think she got him. So
Brent, just very last question. We're about to interview Jack Riewoldt, one of our most famous football players of all time. I'm just wondering if you know anything about Jack, or you know anything about the.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. I know football in your country is not football in my country, right?
No, that's true.
And then, which side of the road do y'all drive on over there?
On the left-hand side.
All right. I'm not really familiar with the metric system, so I'm trying to do the conversions in my head about football to soccer. So I'm thinking about it.
No, it's not soccer. It's like Australian football. It's called Australian rules, where you take a mark and you kick goals, and there's 6 points for a goal, 1 point for a behind.
What? How many points from getting them from behind?
1 point for a behind. 6 points if you.
For me, getting them from behind, that's all the points. That's how you want to do it, right there. You got to get a couple of these in them, and they'll let you do anything from behind.
No, indeed. Well, I mean, Jack Riewoldt, one of our superstars, who's about to join us, tries to kick more goals than behinds.
I'm sure he does. Brenda, keep the dogs down. I'm trying to talk about whatever I don't know, sports.
It's sport.
I don't know anything about cricket or whatever you're talking about. So,
if you could just say a big hello to Jack Riewoldt, one of our superstars about to join us, that would be.
Hey, I'll send you a signed koozie. I know you're a big fan, probably. So, you keep doing it, and sooner or later you're going to go pro with this thing. You know, you're doing great over there, and you're doing the Lord's work, and whatever you got going on, I'm sure you're doing great. What's his name?
Jack Riewoldt.
Hey, okay, Rick. Just I don't know what you're trying to get me to do, because I don't. Unless it's the NFL, which I don't watch except for Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays and Saturdays during the playoffs, I don't know what it is.
I understand, and thank you so much for
keep the dogs down.
I was just going to see if you could throw to Jack Riewoldt and say one of our guests is Jack Riewoldt. That's all.
Okay, we're going to go to Jack Ringwald from Austrian football.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, send me check that you said you're going to send me.
It's coming, brother.
Lots of money from PayPal.
Rock and roll. Thank you, brother. Talk soon.
All right.
All right.
God damn, I hate doing this, guys. Oh, hold on. No, sorry, I'm not off yet. Okay.
Just thank you. There we go. Okay. That's Free Bird. Brent, our US correspondent, joining us, laying down the stuff. And we're about to be joined by Jack Rewalt, who's he wasn't that familiar with Jack, but let's see how we go. Now, Jack, I can't see you. Whoa. Wait, whoa, there we go. Hang on, gotcha. Okay, we're being joined by Jack Rewalt. Welcome to the show.
How are we?
You good?
I'm good. That was.
I hope you caught our American correspondent.
I watched a few YouTube clips today, so I didn't know what I was in for, but yeah, Donald Trump.
He's MAGA yell louder. He's selling a t-shirt range.
Very good.
He loves it. Now, Jack, just before we go on, firstly, welcome to the show, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I went to change shirts to make sure. I saw you in a suit, and I quickly rushed off.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing the jacket with the little, I'm doing the whole, night show thing. Yeah, that's the show. But I'm going to read out, because what I have not been doing with other guests, and we've had Kevin Rudd on, we've had Jennifer Robinson on, Julian Assange's lawyer, all these incredible people, and I keep not reading out any of their successes before I introduce them. So I'm going to read out some of yours. Okay. Just to kind of, yeah, I know. I like this. This is straight off Wikipedia too, by the way. Like, I love this. This is one of the things I love about Wikipedia, right? It goes, is a professional Australian rules footballer currently playing for the Richmond Football Club. Currently. I love that.
Currently.
Because that is your only club professionally, as far as I know, and I don't think you're in any rush to change. Two-time premiership player, obviously. Three-time Coleman medalist, three-time All-Australian, 9-time Richmond club leading goal kicker, and two-time Jack Dyer medalist, vice captain, has done so since 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Rewalt. That's my big intro.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to talk about, though, I've got my wife, who's a Tasmanian, who I think you're aware of, Holly, who you've met, is her first question. I promised I'd ask it. Bogues or Cascade is the first question.
I'm a Cascade man. Yeah, no, Cascade. I'm south of Campbelltown, so that's the official, I suppose, border where you go from being a Cascade person to a Bogues person. But I wouldn't turn a bottle of Bogues down. So Cascade would be my choice.
Thank you for that answer. Very diplomatic.
What's Holly's choice?
What's that?
What's Holly's choice?
No. Well, hers is Bogues Triple X in a can.
Oh yeah, not bad actually.
But it's got to be in a can, which is that's her quirk.
It's a Scottsdale beer, that one. It's sort of northeast coast.
She's as they say up there, north as fuck or something. I can't remember what the term is. We'll talk about some other Tasmanian terms shortly. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to know what it was like growing up in Tassie, and when did you realise you were good at football?
Oh, I think growing up in Tassie was probably it was pretty special. We sort of, I don't know if you've seen the show with I'm trying to think of what it's called, where they speak about Australia as the mainland, and that is literally Rosehaven. Sorry, my wife just yelled at me. Rosehaven.
Oh no, yeah, yeah, I know the show very well. Yeah, we've actually even done a tour of the Rosehaven spots. When we go down to Tassie. Yeah. Yep.
So it's very it's very similar to that, and I obviously left Tassie. I moved to Melbourne 14 years ago. So a lot of time's passed, and it's become a bit of a arts mecca, Hobart especially. But before that, it's pretty sort of simple living. Both my parents are PE teachers, so I always had a bit of a love for sport, and yeah, I'm very grateful of the upbringing I had down there and how relaxed it was. I think it's had a big influence on my life.
Yeah, and there's so many greats, great Tasmanian footballers that have, that have obviously that have come from Tassie. Even there was a great incident. I think it's like in the 50s. I don't know if you know this story where it was a grand final and a bunch of people stole the football post so that the final goal could not be kicked. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that
I have a
tale.
feeling it might have happened up at New Norfolk. That story, but yeah,
Right.
there's actually a Facebook page that started up, which is Tasmanian Football Friends and Family, which Robert Shaw, who was a great Tasmanian footballing coach and player, and he coached a bit at Essendon and Adelaide. And I've been following it over the last sort of 6 months about these famous footy stories and folklore of great players through the Apple Isle.
Yeah, indeed. And so I suppose one of my other questions, which you just made me think of, which is slightly not football and it's a kind of diversion, but we'll go back. So have you been to Mona in Tasmania?
Yes, I have been to Mona.
And thoughts?
I like it. No, I like it. It's actually I went to a school called St Virgil's, which is probably 2 suburbs up from Mona, in Austin's Ferry. So for 4 years of my life, drove past Berrydale there, where David Walsh has set up Mona, and never thought it would be what it is.
Yeah,
And it's quirky, but I think patriotically, I love it because it sort of puts Hobart on the map a little bit in a completely different space that a lot of people have probably viewed Hobart in the past. And it's been great for the economy down there. And I think he's really sort of set the scene for that whole sort of dark mofo Mona arts setup, which I think is sort of really sort of symbolises Hobart at the moment.
absolutely. I mean, I think he's done wonderful work, but the more important question is, I don't know if you've been to the Mona shop, but you can actually buy vagina soaps. Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
bought one of the vagina soaps and sent it to someone and said, like, happy birthday, cunt?
No, I haven't, but I was sort of thinking that when you were saying that. But I remember the last time I went, and I went and watched the human art piece of the guy that had the tattoos on his back,
Yeah.
and he sits
Who
there.
sits up the top?
He sits up the top there, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's an amazing, just something I would have never thought of. And yeah, it's when you really think about it, he sort of sits there for, I think it's 7 hours a day and does nothing. So
Yeah.
um,
I think
yeah,
his
it's
name's Tim. And you go like,
Tim.
I
It is
can't
Tim.
imagine a job. Well, because he's totally tatted up. He looks like Dane Swan or Dusty or someone and he's got the full tats, but he sits there for like 7 hours. That's a tough gig. I don't know if I could do that one.
No, not for mine.
Yeah. No, not for mine either. But like the thing that I go about, we'll get back onto footy in a sec, because I know like a lot of people are going to want to talk footy. But the Mona thing, the thing that I love about that, because we're going to get David Walsh onto the show soon. Hopefully, like, fingers crossed. Like, I'm doing my best to get
Fantastic.
him on. Well, he's done so much for Tassie. I just go like,
Mm.
like Tasmania changed because of him, I would argue. Because that place, when you go in there and it doesn't feel wanky, like you go like, I don't know if you know that if you've done the thing where you get the little the iPod thing, and when you're looking at the art, you can either go press art wank or you like it. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
done that. Have
No,
you
I haven't
seen
done
that?
I haven't done the guided tour. I've sort of just walked through there myself. But
Right.
I suppose the way he thinks about it is left of centre. And when you think about Tassie in a whole, it probably is a little bit left of centre because we're not connected to the mainland, and we're maybe a little bit behind in terms of what people think we're a little bit behind in terms of culture and technology even. But yeah, it's an amazing place, and I've actually got a couple of bits of artwork I think up there. They're 2 Tassie pieces for the
Oh,
people out there.
nice.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so it's yeah, it's I think patriotically, anyone that's from Hobart or Tassie is somehow joined to Mona or joined to Dark Mofo, because they're pretty proud of the fact that people come from not only all over Australia, they come from all over the globe to go and look at the wall of vaginas.
Yeah, indeed.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. And the
And the
brilliant
poo
poo machine.
machine.
Yeah, of course. Like, you got to see the poo machine. I remember I took my daughter to see the poo machine. Oh, and congratulations on your daughter, by the phone just did a little thing.
Thank you. I dropped out there.
That was just my phone. Don't worry. My phone just did a bit of nonsense. Congratulations on your daughter, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Poppy. She's going really well. She hasn't seen her grandparents, obviously, due to the last 3 months with the coronavirus, as our US correspondent said. But no, they're both sets of grandparents are in Tassie at the moment. So I'm looking forward to them coming over. It's probably out of everything. Like, I mean, obviously I've missed playing footy, but I've really missed my family, not being able to see my family and my parents-in-law, not being able to see their first grandchild really grow up. So I'm looking forward to when the borders are open down there and they can come over here for a couple of weeks and be grandparents.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, because that border is such an actual border at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, you can't get on the boat. There's no planes. Like, I mean, what do you do? Like, take a drug dealer's boat and sort of sail that down there. Like, swim. Yeah. It's the only way to get there. No, it's a tough one. But just to go back to footy for a sec. You were in arguments early on. Do you remember when the whole thing sort of first started off, and you were picked on particularly talking about with players' pay and all that kind of all that stuff when that first sort of blew up. How's it been? How do I put this? What's it been like for the players, not just you personally, but for the players when suddenly, because I know as an actor, suddenly our industry's wiped. What's it been like for football players?
Well, I think it's such a broad spectrum because you go from guys that are at the top of the game that earn $1.2, $1.3 million that are astronomical figures, right down to guys that might earn maybe 80 grand a year. And the whole crux of the pay deal was to the fact that they slashed everyone in half. Just unfortunately with the union, it everyone sort of was hit with the same cut. So yes, a guy going from however much to 1.2 to 600 is a big drop. But you could argue the fact that a guy going from 80 grand to 40 grand is
it's slightly different. Yeah,
it is different. It is different. But I think, unfortunately, during the time that the whole dispute and argument was going on, there's so many people around the country that are suffering economic loss and financial loss that when you argue about money in the public space, there really is no winners. So it's found like water finds its level, and we found the parties. So both parties have found an agreement that works, and I think right now everyone's just keen to get some footy back up and going and do it safely, and then just hopefully we can move on together as an organisation, and then just get ready for some footy.
Yeah, I mean, we're all dying for footy, make no mistake. I'm also wondering, like, with this sort of time off, what have you reflected on as far as your life goes? Because there was an idea there for a while when it really felt like footy may not happen again. It didn't feel like it, there was a little bit where it felt like not only may it not happen this year, which still may be the case, we never know, but that it might not, that the whole thing might collapse. How have you, or what have you reflected on, with your life as a professional footballer?
Yeah, it's a great question, Reece. I'm certainly closer to the end of my career than the start.
Take it easy.
Well, I'm nearly 32 years of age. Nearly 32. Can you believe it?
Close.
No, it's an interesting one. I think I've been able to spend more time at home. I've spent a lot of time with my cousin, just training and picking his brain and everything.
You mean Nick?
Yeah, my cousin Nick. Yeah, so just
Yeah,
sort
no, I love you. Just go, my cousin, who's like
of.
Nick. You know that I know Nick, and like that I consider a lord. I'm a Saints man and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Nick's actually been. You and Nick have actually been training together.
Yeah, so he just lives down the road from me, and a lot of early morning sessions with. He's got 3 young kids, and I've got obviously Poppy, so we try and do the dad thing and get it out early, and then get home and be house husbands, as you started in the show actually called House
Indeed.
Husbands. There you go, not a bad segue, but it's it's been good. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've been actually working a little bit part time for a builder. I've one thing I have done is I've completed a carpentry apprenticeship whilst I've been at the Tigers. So I put a bit of those sort of skills into use, and it's been.
Have you built anything wood wise, like as a chippy? Have you built anything yet?
I've
Like
built
just
a
a little
few
bit of home.
walls.
I should probably actually ask the wife this, but like, have you actually done any chippy work around the home?
I've put a few walls up. I've done everything. I've actually restubbed the house.
Oh, okay, that's solid. I thought you were going to say. I thought I was just about to expose you as like having done nothing.
No, I've done a lot of things. So it's been good. It's been a good experience for me. It's actually given me a bit of it's giving me, because when you come to the end of your career, you worry about the
Why do you
cliff.
keep saying the end of your career? I'm sorry to keep pulling you up on this.
No, but if you get to start getting a bit older, you obviously know that you're getting
A bit
towards the
older.
end.
So if you could just say your age, just for our audience.
31.
31. Yep.
Here we are.
Fucking one. Like
Carly's just written
it's
on
all
the,
over. Like, okay, 31. Go on.
So my wife has just written on the comments, and she said he reckons he's a welder, and I learned how to weld. There you go. There's one thing I learned how to do.
Okay.
No, but it just gives me a bit of clarity about what life is after football, whenever that does come, and hopefully it's not for a while. But
well, that's what we all pray.
It's good. You know that the sun's still going to come up, even when footy isn't a direct part of your life as a player.
Yeah, but like I know. Okay, I'm going to have to take it into. I know how much football means to me, and I've only kicked it around, not professionally, right? And I know, and like even watching it, you know how much it means to me, and like I know how much it means to you. Like I've met a lot of football players, and you are so profoundly single-minded about your love of football, right? Like crazy. So this is a big thing. So like what I'd like to ask you is, describe your love of football. And what's so beautiful about our game, that it's our Indigenous game, our Australian game, invented by Australia, the oldest codified sport in the world, the Sherrin football. Why have you devoted your life to it? What's so magnificent about our game?
That's a great question. I think actually I'll speak about what I reckon the opportunities personally it's given me, and I'll probably speak more about the club really than anything else. It's I love my football club. Well, I love it more than any other football club, obviously, because it's mine. But I love what we're about. I love the leaders that we have in place, like Brendan and Peggy, Trent and Dimmer. Just how caring we are. Like I think one of the biggest things I attach myself to is our Indigenous part of our football club. And this week actually it was Dream Time of the G, and we still launched our jumper. And it probably is a fact that I've got 4 young Indigenous players that play in the forward line. So that like I would have never met these kids if I didn't have footy, and if they didn't have footy. And it's given me a greater connection with people that I may never have sort of crossed paths with, which has made me, I think, a better person. I reckon that's the crux of it. And you know what, I just, there's something about going out and playing sport and doing something that you really do love with 21 other players that, it's hard to replicate. yeah, it's sort of like going back to school, really. It's going to school with a lot of your mates.
Yeah, well, so I would imagine that one of the most difficult things, because I don't know if you agree with this, but I think that life is a team sport. I don't think it's ultimately about the individual. Um, you may or may not, agree with that, but because you need sort of individual brilliance, but you need the team to show off that brilliance.
Yeah,
You know, like you have to have
I
good
think
people around you. You know.
yeah, I think probably the current time that we find ourselves in is um, a great example of the teams that are coming together. I mean, Australia's performed and Victoria and every state really has performed well above the rest of the world with obviously the current crisis. And yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, it's a great analogy, I think.
Um, how have you? Oh, very profoundly personal question. Because I'm in isolation with my wife. You're in isolation with your wife with child. Are you
Yep.
getting on all right?
Pretty good. Pretty good. She's actually, I think she's watching this in the other room. So
Well, my wife's watching the show, obviously, but yeah.
yeah. No,
But you're getting all right, though.
yeah, no, we're getting on great. I think we found a really good balance just between getting out of the house and making sure we're still physically active. I reckon that's probably one of the hardest, the things that is keeping a lot of people going is the fact they've still been able to get out and go for a run and go for a walk. And to be honest, the days have been going pretty quickly just having to look after a child. So um, I think we sort of sit down at the end of the day and a lot of the times at dinner and sort of look at Poppy and just go, holy shit, she's pretty cute. So it makes both of us smile and yeah, just going all right.
Cool. So,
She's just
what
commented. There we go. Here we go.
what's the comment? I'm not because I'm not looking at the comments. I'm just not doing that.
Carly has written, here we go. And then the builder that I'm working for is laughing at me. So very good.
Oh, cool. You'll have to do a TikTok with him. You know, like just get him on the good side. You know.
I don't know about TikTok for me.
Oh no, well, no, I don't like making them, but I do like watching them. Like
There's some very,
I piss myself at them. I just go like, just this sort of crazy creativity of just random Australians doing weird shit. I just love that stuff.
it's the internet. It's probably one thing I've really appreciated more is the internet and
Yeah.
how funny some people genuinely are. Like I find myself constantly tagging my little brother in memes and in TikToks just because I know he's got a sort of wicked sense of humor like me and just finds them hilarious.
Oh yeah. No, me too. Like no, but also like you say, like totally just like people you just don't know at all, and you just go like, you little genius, like just doing random weird, going up to people in supermarkets and going like, what's something your mum doesn't know, or whatever the question is, you know, just
Yeah,
random hilarious weirdness. It's just so fucking hilarious. I love it.
it is. It's very good.
Just to go very briefly back to football. Um, Firstly, I've just got to ask, just because it still fascinates me, because I watched you and Nick doing the show on Fox on KO last night. Great quarters between St Kilda and Richmond. And you mentioned on the show that you and Nick were training together, but I actually didn't buy it. But now you've told me that it's true.
Yeah.
So how did you sort that? And who's the hard ass in the combination between you and Nick? Like as in training wise?
Um, so I'm petrified of the fact that I know that he's fitter than me still, because he is
Now we're
just
talking.
an aerobic beast. So I sort of put it off a little bit, and he's sort of pestering me. He's like, "Oh, what training are you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just running." And then finally, I sort of got him on board, and yeah, just for probably the last sort of 5 weeks, it's been running one day, then we'd ride bike the next, and it's been great for me because I've actually when 2017 we sort of went through this a leadership and culture activity at the club, and that you spoke about, like you had to speak about a hardship of your life, a highlight of your life, and you had to speak about your hero in your life. And I actually spoke about Nick being my hero.
Wow.
And I never sort of told him that, but I mean, I idolised him as a kid growing up. Obviously, played the same position as me. He looked after me. Like I did work experience at St Kilda Football Club for 2 weeks and lived with him for 2 weeks when I was 16 years of age. And it was just, I couldn't think of someone like, and a lot of people spoke about their dad and whatnot. And my old man's a fantastic person, and I love him to death. But like for my time, I remember thinking this guy is like genuinely my hero. So I sort of
It's so
latched onto
lovely
him.
but it's so lovely. Sorry to interrupt, but it's so lovely to hear you say that, because I know both you and Nick, right? And I knew Nick before you, and like he's such a lovely human being. Like he's just such a truly, you know, just a really lovely human being, you know, and as are you, just quietly, which people don't often get, you know, like there's the football noise and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how you managed to be such a good family. You know what I mean? Like normally football families, like you come from a terrible place and you're, you know, like it's all horrible and something magic happened though. But to even hear you talking about Nick so lovingly is actually really, really touching, just quietly.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think our grandparents probably had a fair bit to do with it. They were pretty hard asses. They both came out from Germany, but it's to be honest, I think probably after Maddie's passing 5.5 years ago, we became really tight. And his wife, Kath, is the same age as me and Carly, so we've got a really great connection there as well. And they're Poppy's godparents. So, and I know it sort of is a weird circle to say that and then have the training aspect of it too. But I suppose he's my idol, and I appreciate everything that he sort of does for me, and he just drags me along, and that's what training sort of ended up being. It ended up being just a couple of mates catching up and just working hard together and having a laugh and having a coffee and talking about dad stuff after we'd done. So it was good. I'm going to miss it, actually. I really am going to miss it.
Yeah. And so what's the just last couple of questions just before we go. So what do you think the future of the AFL is? What do you think is going to, I mean, I know we can all only kind of half guess, but what's been happening with you with training, and where do you think this season's going to go?
Look, we're training in groups of 8 at the moment. And then I got tested for COVID today, as part of AFL protocol.
Did you get it right up the nose, right up to the back of the brain?
Right up the schnoz.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not great. But no, it was good. It's just part of the protocol to get going. And then next week, start doing a bit of contact training and tackling and stuff like that, which, is obviously an important part of the game. And then June 11th, we're playing Collingwood. So, look, it's still a tightrope in terms of, if we were to have a cluster like, unfortunately, some old people's homes have had, and then the cluster in that meat factory in Victoria, then look, this season would be obviously come to a screeching halt. It would be really, really hard to get it going again. And the financial hit would be massive to the AFL. So this really is the old football adage. It's 1 week at a time, possibly even 1 day at a time, and just hoping to remain connected to that season and enjoy the footy.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, I asked you to choose a song to go out on.
Yes.
Would you like to announce the song and also explain why?
Oh, well, I watched last week's show back on YouTube, and I saw you had Greville Records on the show.
Warren, yes.
Warren, yeah. So one thing that the coach has done for the players is he's always given us little nuggets of gold and little presents prior to every game. And he's a big record person. So I've received a lot of records from him over the years. And my favourite one's Dire Straits, so I picked Walk of Life. So I hope
Cool.
everyone out there enjoys it. There's a lot of, I think there's a few young people on the Instagram live here that probably won't even know this song and won't even know what a record is or a record player or a CD for that. So no, I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Thank you, everyone.
Hang tough. And
Stay
love
safe.
to Nick. Cheers.
See you later.
And to your wife, your good lady wife.
Yes, she's watching. See you,
Thanks,
mate.
brother. Cheers. Okay. There's Jake. Here we got Dire Straits with Walk of Life as chosen. So Jake was just saying that, which you probably do, but given so many records by his club, which I just think is so fantastic. Just the people, music, records, CDs, play them. The more football clubs that actually play music and get into records and go to Greville Records, by the way, the better. We're about to be joined by Dean Maddock. We're just going to do a little bit of Walk of Life. I'll do a little button touch here. There you go. Thanks so much, Jack. That was a great interview. That was really cool. And I'm sorry I didn't get to respond to anybody's messages and all that stuff, but I'm just talking to Jack. You know, that's how it was. Hang on. Just do my little button press here. Oh, and there we go. About to be joined by Dean Maddock. He's connecting. Woo! There we go.
Woohoo!
Little...
Mate, how are you?
We're doing Jack Rewald's dance at the moment.
Absolutely.
Welcome, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Yourself?
I'm very well. Now, just to
Long
introduce
time
you...
no see in person?
Beg your pardon?
Said a long time no see in person?
Indeed. Well, you are in Tasmania yourself, as we were just discussing. There's no crossing over that border at the moment.
No, not for quite a while, I reckon.
No, so just to introduce you, Dean, so you've worked in the, I was going to say the prison industry, but certainly in prisons for how long? At least 20 years?
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah, so
yep.
I was frontline officer for the majority of that time. Yep. During that time, I also served 14 years in the Tactical Response Group. And I've been lucky enough also, because of my work in the prison industry, to win a Churchill Fellowship in 2017.
Great.
Which is all about prison reform. Yeah,
which is they're all the topics that I obviously want to talk about. And thank you for introducing yourself, because I was going to go, but anyway. But so I'd like to talk about what has it been like? What's serving, particularly when you were younger? What was it like serving on the front line in a prison? Like, just what's it like when you first go into a prison as a working in a prison?
Look, day one when you walk in, let's be honest, you just shit yourself. Nothing can, you just can't describe the environment. You know, you're walking into a place where 600 inmates, where the prison I worked, they just all hate you, basically. So, yeah, it really is quite confronting. There's a lot of negativity in prisons, but there's also, a lot of good things that happen. You get a lot of good camaraderie with the people you work with. You see some interesting sights, that's for sure. But, I've been really lucky. I had a really good career in the prison service. I've travelled around the world with it. I went to Singapore in 2012 to compete in the Asian Prison Lockdown Challenge, and just great.
Sorry, hang on. What is an Asian Prison Lockdown Challenge, firstly?
It's a competition for tactical teams. So it's invite only.
How does that work?
The Singapore Prison Service put on a heap of scenarios, and they have other officers that dress up as dummies, and they put targets up, and you're given time frames, and you have to go and solve all the scenarios.
What would be some of the scenarios? You got to remember that nobody knows what we're talking about. So there was a few hostage rescue ones.
There was yard suppression, where you're given a heap of writing inmates and you have to go and fix the problem and stop them writing, basically. Yeah, so it's extremely interesting. You get to, for a whole week, I got to shoot things and blow stuff up on someone else's budget. It was really good stuff.
And so, but what's the difference between the game where you're doing it, you know, like in Singapore, for example, as opposed to an actual incident? What's the actual difference?
They're pretty realistic. A lot of the scenario stuff actually can be harder because prison officers tend to go a lot harder at other prison officers. But yeah, no, they're very realistic competitions. The stress level's not there in competition as it is in real life. But yeah, pretty much they're pretty similar.
But the stress level in real life, because you must have faced some pretty nasty incidents, you know, in your time as a prison officer. There must have been times when you're, you know, have been afraid, or crazily unafraid. You know, I don't know. They're probably sort of parts of the same coin. You know,
the worst part of a prison riot is actually the build-up.
Right.
You know, it's the weeks, the months leading up to it when you know it's coming. When it starts and it gets underway, it's sort of a very eerie calm amongst all that chaos. You know, we're fairly well trained, so you just rely on your training and you rely on your teammates that are with you, and you just sort of get the job done. You don't really think about your safety at all. You know, we're in head-to-toe protective equipment, so you feel quite safe in that kind of situation.
Have you ever felt unsafe?
Ever felt unsafe? Not in riot suppression, I haven't, no. I've had times, you know, in my career where you do feel unsafe.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So.
Yeah, like if you can give us an example of one of the times that you felt unsafe.
When you find yourself being the only officer around, you've got 20 or 30 inmates around you. That happens quite a lot because there's a lot of intimidation in the prison. I found myself in the middle of one of my last riots, actually. I was the only officer in an area, and there was 200 other inmates there. And I thought, oh, everyone's left, so I better go as well.
Right. So, and what's been the, sorry to go personal on this, but what's been the emotional toll on you just working in a prison for that long?
Oh, look, yeah, prisons are the most toxic, addictive places that you can work, believe it or not. You know, and you know, anyone who goes through a career, especially the length that I've had, that doesn't have mental health issues from time to time or doesn't have injuries. I mean, I've had shoulder reconstructions, I've had back surgery, I've had my problems of, you know, with depression and anxiety, and that's just all sort of built into your career, unfortunately. I've been lucky, you know, I have a supportive family, as you well know, and the trick is with anyone who has mental health issues is to put your hand up and get help when you need it. And listen to the people around you. They know when you're not right. And they'll, you know, send you off and put you in the right direction and say, look, you know, you need to go talk to someone. You know, and half the time just talking to someone and getting it off your chest is a very large part of it.
Has there been a change, like over that 20 years? Like certainly when you're younger and you're like sort of, you know, young and, you know, bulletproof and all that, was there a change where suddenly you actually started to notice I've got to start looking after my mental health, you know, or worry about my kind of emotional state as opposed to my physical state, you know? Because I certainly know when I was younger, you know, just didn't care. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd just go in, jump.
Yeah, you don't care.
You don't care. But when you get older, you kind of reflect on it a bit. Was there some point where you noticed a shift in your thinking?
Oh, look, I think too, you know, as anyone gets older and, you know, when you're young and on yourself, by yourself, it doesn't matter. But when you start talking about, you have kids and you have a wife and you have, mortgages and all that sort of stuff, your life priorities do change. And, you get those times of reflection where you just go, yeah, I need to look after myself, or, I had it. I couldn't do it anymore. I've moved on to greener pastures. I just needed to get out. Everyone has a shelf life in that industry. It could be 12 months. It could be 30 years. And the trick is knowing that, when you've had enough, to actually make a positive change and get out.
Now, one of the ways that you've sort of got out, but you actually got a Churchill Fellowship to go and study other prisons. If you could talk us through what those other prisons were like and what you learned, and then we'll get on to what you think we should change about prison systems in Australia.
Yeah, excellent. When I was awarded my fellowship, it was to study the sustainability in prison projects through the United States. And everyone's heard about how bad the United States is in their prison system and all the horror stories, but it's the total opposite. They are leading the way in a lot of reform. And the interesting part of the project that I went and studied was all about nature. It was about the prisoners giving back to the community. They were helping do, forestry rehabilitation work. One particular prison had been working on the spotted frog, and they'd taken this animal off the endangered species list. It took them 10 years of breeding this particular frog to get it off the endangered species list. There's also a lot happening in the space with waste reform. It's just absolutely incredible what they're doing, to be honest. One particular... Sorry?
No, you're right.
Yeah, it was a crazy journey. I remember I was at one place called South Fork Prison Camp, and we're out in the middle of this most magnificent forest, and there's all these log cabins where all the prisoners were staying. And the whole purpose of this camp was bushfire firefighting and forest rejuvenation work. And helicopters were coming in, picking up inmates, taking them off, fighting fires. And we're sitting there talking to a couple of inmates, and, deer. There's a couple of deer go walking through the compound. And I just turned around and said, oh, yeah, that's nice. And they said, oh, yeah, it's good when they're walking. When they're running, it's not so good. And I said, oh, why? What's happening when they're running? I said, oh, they're chased by a bear or a cougar, something like that. And it's just a flippant comment. And then, a couple of days later, I'm standing in an execution chamber. And you think, it's just, the whole system is just, it's insane. Yeah. You go to one hand, you see all these fantastic things they're doing, and then you walk around the corner and there's something like an execution chamber. It's quite daunting. But they have a very solid philosophy that you either have to give back to the prison community by working for prison industries, or you give back to the broader community. That's their whole philosophy. It's all about trying to reintroduce these people into some sort of society.
So, we've only got about 90 seconds left. So, what would be, and sorry for that, but what would be the main things that you would change about the Australian prison system?
Well, I don't know how you can run that into 90 seconds. I think you really have to leave the running of the prisons to the guys who work there every day. It is a weird environment, and unless you work in those environments, you can't understand how hard it is to get change. There's a lot of votes are lost in prisons. Not much is won. We need politicians to come on board and actually drive reform, and not listen to their backers. Whether it's Amnesty International or church groups or whoever is backing them. You need to listen to the professionals on the ground to get change.
Cool. Now, if we're about to go out. So if you could please, thanks so much for joining us, Dean. And I want to talk more, actually. I've got to get you back on the show because we haven't finished this conversation. But if you could just name the song that you chose as your song.
Paul Kelly, Dumb Things.
Beautiful. Thanks
and
so
let's
much for
just say Yeah, I'm glad there was no cameras around when I was growing up.
Cheers, brother. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk again.
See you, mate.
Cheers,
Take
mate.
care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, Dean Maddock joining us.